So it's April 14th. I'm going to give you a little tour of what's going on around the greenhouse and seed starting area, and also pot up a pepper plant or two. So here we have some lobelia, which are in 2-inch pots and are ready to go out pretty soon. Next to them is some parsley, also ready to go out soon. They're doing well. Behind them are pepper plants. There's Craig's and Goliath jalapenos in these close pots. And then in the back there, that plant is an Etuda, which is an orange bell pepper. And then there's a cayenne pepper, this tall one right here. Got lots of flowers on it. In fact, it's even got a nice pepper on it. And then these over on the side here are Hungarian Sweetheart. All pretty nicely flowering. And there's some green onion, ready to be picked at any time I need them. And I have tomato plants here, and these are the Glacier tomatoes that are determinate tomatoes, and they're kind of a smaller plant, maybe 2.5 to 3 feet at the most. And I planted these in succession, so these are the first plants I did. And then the one next to it, I started about 3 weeks later. And then this little tiny one over here, I started about a month after that, and that's just about ready to get moved up to its larger pot. I have strawberry plants that I tried for the first time in the greenhouse in hanging baskets. You can see that there are flowers on these and early developing strawberries. And there's no flowers on the plants that are out in the outside beds yet, so they're definitely ahead of the game. And then there's a few more green onions. And then some more pepper plants. Another Goliath and a couple of Hungarians. And then there's one more Hungarian to get potted up into its pot very soon. And come around to here, there's one more strawberry plant. This one I started several weeks before the first one I showed. And you can see that there are multiple strawberries on there that are coming into color and will be ready to pick in a couple of days. And actually, I've already picked one ripe one off this plant. So on the outside here, nothing really new planted, but you can see that everything is growing nice. The strawberry plants are looking nice and green. No real flowers to speak of yet, but it's pretty early for that. Garlic is coming along very well. And then in the next bed, more strawberry plants. For some reason, I lost a couple plants right on this corner here, so the ones that are in there that are really small are ones that I just planted 3-4 weeks ago. The rest are coming along okay. And then my onions also starting to get larger. They've been in the ground a couple weeks. And over on this side, my lettuce plants that were in the greenhouse have been moved outside because it's just getting way too warm in there for them, and they'll be bolting in no time if I left them there. Some of the ones that were in the greenhouse didn't do so well because I think there's not enough air circulation in there, and that caused the base of the plants to rot a little, or some of the leaves just stayed moist too long, and that's why you see some of that brown that's on there. I need to come up with a different tactic for next winter. Here's another tray of new starts. Those will get potted up pretty soon, and when they do, they'll go on that wall over there with the shelving in those 1-gallon pots. And back here is a couple Brussels sprouts plants and some cabbages. And then at this end of this bed, those are some russet potatoes. Never had a lot of luck with potatoes, but I thought I'd take a stab at it. And some celery that wintered over and is coming back strong. I have done some prep work on the end of this bed. This will be divided into 2 sections, and the section on the left will have the pepper plants that I plan on putting in ground, and the section to the right will be bush string beans. Mason bees are waking up, just getting warm enough for them to get active. Right behind me is my cherry tree, so they have perfect access for pollinating my tree. And right here you can see the tree with the shed in the background that the mason bees' home is hanging on. So in my seed starting area, I have about 12 more pepper plants. These are the ones that will go in ground, but that's probably still a month away. I probably started these a little too soon because they are pretty good size, and hopefully they won't be too top heavy by the time they get to go outside. And then in this seed starting tray, I just started my melons and cucumbers. They haven't started coming up yet. It's only been about 3 days. Some dill inside this smaller tray. And then these are petite gris melons. And here are my tomato plants. There's about 25 of them in there. Again, several extras, but I like to plant some extras so that if something happens or one doesn't develop well, there's choices. And then here we got some marigolds. And then that grassy looking stuff in the back there is crocosmia that I started from seed. A little Venus flytrap. I was hoping maybe he'd catch fungus gnats, but doesn't seem to be doing it. Then I have a bit more flowers along the line here. Those are white balloon flowers in the left starter. And then some basil next to it. And then this one is calendula. And here, oh, these are marigolds. That's right. The ones over here were actually cosmos. So something I've started doing this year is keeping a detailed diary on my peppers and my tomatoes so that I can make adjustments next year for things such as my pepper plants being started a little too early, at least for some. I think next year, instead of starting them all in early January like I did this year, I might start half of them then and the other half in early February so that the earliest ones can come out to the greenhouse and get a head start. The later ones would be the ones for going in the ground later in the spring. And so all I did was get a day planner, write down what I'm doing every day. And then I also have a little list on my computer of the same, plus I have another small book that's broken down by plant type and what I think I should do different next year. So I'm going to uppot a couple pepper plants, and I think I'm going to try a little experiment and do 2 different potting mixes and see how they do. The first one I'm going to do is what I've been doing for the plants I've done so far, and with those I've been doing 10 parts of Miracle-Gro in-bed mix and 3 parts this purely compost from G&B. I've used that in the past and I've been pretty happy with it. And by parts I mean big handfuls. Doesn't have to be too precise. All right, so that's the 10 of the Miracle-Gro. We'll get this compost. And before I put the last handful in, I'm also going to add some tomato and veg organic fertilizer. I usually do about 3 heaping teaspoons for this amount of potting mix. And then 1 more. I like to put the last bit of potting mix in last because the fertilizer is kind of powdery, and if you cover it up first before you mix it, then you're not stirring it up into the air and breathing it all in. If I had some vermiculite, I would probably add a bit of that to it also, but out of it at the moment. Oh wait, I do have a little left. Now I'm out. Now that mix usually turns out to be about the right amount to fill one of these small totes, which I've been using as my flower pots because they're fairly inexpensive. I just drill a few drainage holes in the bottom and plant from there. They're also easy to move around if you need to. So I'm going to fill this tote up most of the way, and then we'll be ready to put the plant in it. This potting mix is already pretty moist, so I didn't really need to add any water to it beforehand. But if it was dry, I would pour water into the mixing tote here and mix it up really good, and that helps the water get absorbed into the potting mix. So for this tote, I'm putting in this pepper plant that I started back in January, and I moved it into this pot February 23rd. Now April 14th is going in its final destination. Got a nice root ball, just about where you'd like to see it for transplant time. Yeah, worked out about right. I also found these trays on Amazon, which happen to be a perfect size to fit underneath the totes. And this way I can put water in this and fill it from the bottom. Neat. And I'm just gonna take the label off. And move it to this spot. Now, what I like about having them in those totes is in the middle of the summer, it might be too hot in here. Like it gets to 120 or more, and I don't have a fan on this greenhouse. So they are nice and portable, and I can take them out to a sunny location outside for the hottest part of the summer. And then if they're not fully ripe by the time weather starts to cool off again, I can bring them back in and help give them a longer season. So for this next mix, I'm going to try something a little different, and I'm going to use, okay, where did I put my gloves? Well, my plan is to use some of my old potting mix and mix it with the compost, but I'm going to change the ratio since there's no um, nourishment left in the old soil. So I'm going to give it more compost. And then I have one other type of compost, so I'm going to make a mix of all three of those to make this potting mix. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is up the ratio of the compost and soil amendments compared to what I did with the previous batch, but I'm going to be using previously used potting mix. The previously used potting mix is very dry, so I'm going to have to add a bit of water to it to get the moisture in it that it needs once we put plants in it. So I have the usual 10 good scoops of potting mix. I'm just going to add more scoops of the compost than I did on the previous batch. And like the last batch, I will also add some granular fruit and veg. And then just a little more of this to balance it out and cover the dry. I'm going to get the hose. Just making sure I get all the way to the bottom so that I get it mixed well. The moisture level looks pretty good, so I think it's ready. Now, since I just planted these today, I'm going to water them in from the top as well as put water in the tray below. Just feel like that helps ensure that the soil gets good contact with the roots, especially those roots that were right up against the side of that small pot. And this hose is well water, not city water, so it doesn't have anything added to it. And those are ready to go. So the next job on the list will be prepping the tomato beds. Now they won't be going in for 3 or 4 weeks, but I want to add some of this compost to them and broad fork the soil to loosen it up a bit. With the heavy clay we have here, it tends to get compacted. And so every so often I'll add stuff like this that's lighter and broad fork it so it can work its way down into the cracks and help loosen up the clay soil. I have a coir brick here. I'm going to put it in this tote and put a bunch of water in here. In about 20 minutes, it'll be ready to use. So between the brick and the water I just put in there, that tote's about half full. The next thing I'm going to do while I'm waiting for that is to broad fork the area that I put down the coco coir and compost in 2 days ago. Again, the idea here is that by opening up some cracks in the clay, the coir and the compost can fall into that and help break up the clay into less chunkiness. So more like an hour or so has gone by. Took longer than I expected for the coco coir to absorb the water, and I also had to add water to it a couple of times. But now I've got a pretty full tote to work with. So all I've done with this is put some out around the garden bed. A scooper. And then just kind of spread it out evenly. You don't have to get too fussy about this because It's going to get mixed in when I hit it with the broad fork. I could use a little more here. And now I'm just going to add some compost over the top of that. Well, I think that's it for this time. Please like and subscribe, and thank you for watching.